Hello and welcome to the Sewing Studio. Today I'm going to show you 6 of my favourite layer cake blocks. Now a layer cake is a 10-inch square and there's usually 40 or 42 of these in a pack. And so you can make lots of different quilts using layer cake squares. So today I'm going to show you 6 of the best, and if you stay tuned to the end, I'm going to show you a really clever hack using layer cakes. So the first one is this really simple reverse block, and all this is where you cut 1.5 inches off. So I've got 2 layer cake squares here and I'm going to put them together, line them up. Now I'm using a rotating cutting mat for today because I find this easier, but if you've got a smaller mat you can just pick it up and turn it round. I'm going to cut 1.5 inches off of these blocks today, but you can cut more. You could do a bigger cut here if you wanted to do 2 inches, but I'm going to cut 1.5 inches off. And this is perfect if you've got a lovely feature fabric, it frames it. So 1.5 inches. I'm going to do that again, another 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to turn my mat an 1.5 inches and another 1.5 inches. And then when you come to join them up, so you've got 2 blocks, you're going to alternate your fabrics. So I'm going to join my green here to the short side, here and here, the pink to this one. So do your short sides first. Now you'll know that you're going to lose 1/2 inch, so 1/4 of an inch off this piece and 1/4 of an inch off this piece when you've done your sewing. So when you've done your 2 short sides, your longer piece is going to appear as if it's too long because of your seam. So just put it on, and then when you've pressed it, just trim it off to make it square, as I've done with these ones. So I'll just move this one over so you can see this one as well. So that's the trick. Remember the short sides first, then the long sides, then give it a good press and a good trim. And hey presto, you've got these. And this makes a fantastic quilt, and it's so easy for beginners. So we're on now to the next block. So with this next block, and I have to say, this is probably my most favourite layer cake block. I've made lots of quilts using this block. So this is what the block looks like. So I've used really bright colour fabric here. So that's what the block looks like. So I've got 2 different ones here. So what you need to do is you need to cut. So if you were going to do your whole quilt in this block, you would take your layer cake squares, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut off 3.5 inches. And you're going to flip them over, and I'm going to join that to that. So I'm just going over to the machine to join some of them up. So I'm going to join a piece that measures 3.5 by 10 to a piece that measures 6.5 by 10, and I'm going to chain piece them. So I'm just going to snip my threads where I've chain pieced these. And if I was doing a whole quilt with these blocks, I would make sure that I'd cut my whole layer cake and joined all of it. So I'm just going to the iron now to press these. So I'm setting my seam and I'm just flipping back the smaller piece. And when you're doing lots of these blocks, there is no matching for this one. So that's the great thing. You don't have to get too hung up about which direction you're doing your ironing or your pressing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to line up all of these blocks and cut as many as you're confident cutting. You can do them individually if you want to, but you can cut them a few together if you're a confident cutter. So now what we need to do is to make sure our seam that we've just sewn is going horizontally, and then we are going to cut these blocks in half. So we're going to cut them, we're going to cut 5 inches, not 5.5. I'll just line it up and straight through the horizontal seam that you've just sewn. So once we've cut them, we're just going to have a shuffle through and see which ones we like best. So then we take 2 of these pieces and then we join them like this. So you can see we've got a small piece and a long piece, and then the opposite way round we've got a small piece and a long piece. So we join those together. So I'm just going back to the machine to join those. And there we have our block. So as I say, it's a really fun, quick, easy block. And when you lay this out, you lay it with your pattern going vertically, and then the next block you lay with your pattern going horizontally, and you alternate like that. So that's block number 2. So that brings me to block number 3. So block number 3 is called Cuckoo's Nest, and this is the block. Now you can use it as it is like this, or you can create this and put 4 of these together to make a big block. It's up to you, but it's really quick and easy to do. So you need 3 pieces of fabric that contrast with one another. So I've chosen a brown, a yellow, and a green. And I'm going to use my cutting mat that rotates for this one again, because this one we do need to turn it to make sure that we get our cuts right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut off 2.5 inches. And we're going to put those to one side. Then we're going to turn the mat. Just move this over here so you can see a bit better. And then normally I wouldn't move it, but I'm moving it for the camera. Normally I would keep it still, which is the benefit of having a rotating mat. So I'm going to cut 2.5 inches from there. And I'm going to rotate it again. And I'm going to cut 2.5 inches from there. And then I'm going to rotate it one final time. And I will just move that down there so you can see it. And I'm going to cut another 2.5 inches. So you can see here that I've got 4 strips of 2.5 inches that I've cut off all the way round. And to lay this out, what we do is we move that one underneath. So that's our next piece that we're going to join on. Move that one to there. So that's our next piece. And then our longer pieces, we go for the darker colour. So we have that one there and that one there. And that's our block. And we can repeat that 3 times because we've got different centres. So you can see if we go with the brown one, let me just move that over there for a minute. If we go with the brown one, and then we have a green there. What have I done with the other green? It's here somewhere. And then we have a yellow there and there. So you can see that we're going to end up with 3 blocks, all different colours, or a different layout, I should say, not different colours. They're the same colours, but they are a different layout. So when you join these together, because you're going to have your 1/4 inch seam, each piece is going to be slightly longer when it's been sewn on. So it's just a case of trimming it up to square it up. There is a full tutorial on how to make a cuckoo's nest quilt. So if you are interested in that one, then look that one up to see how to do a whole quilt in it. So that now brings me to block number 4. So this block is called a Battenberg block, and I'm just going to get my rotating mat again. And this is all 2.5 inches. This is the only measurement you need to remember again on this one. So this is what the block looks like. So you can see there. And then how we create that, so every time we cut, we are going to create 3 different blocks. So you can see the leftover pieces from this one. I've got the same colours, but in a different order for this one. And again, there's a whole tutorial on the Battenberg block. So I've got 3 layer cake squares here. And I'm going to cut 2 long sides at 2.5 inches. And then I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to cut, let's just move it again for the camera. As I said earlier, I wouldn't normally move it once it's on there. And I'm going to cut 2.5 twice. And then this 5-inch square, I'm going to cut into quarters. So again, it's 2.5. I think I might be needing a new blade in a minute. Turn it around and cut 2.5 again. And now for this one, I'm going to take a green and a white. So that's going to be my centre block. And then my outside pieces I'm going to have as the yellow. So you can mix this up. So my next one, I might have the inside pieces as the white and yellow. and then my outer edges of this one would be green. So I'm just going to go to the machine and stitch this one together so you can see what this one looks like. So I've put 2 small squares right sides together, a white one and a yellow one facing each other. And then I'm just going to finger press these back. Normally I'd go to the iron, but I'm just going to finger press these back for now. And I've finger pressed them towards the yellow so that these will lock together. These 2 seams will push together nicely. And as it's such a small piece, I don't really need to pop a pin in there. So that's the centre completed. Then take my short side, and this is where the short side is going to be longer than you need it to be because we've lost ½ an inch in our seam already. So opposite sides with our green fabric. So I'm just going to give those a press and trim off our extra ½ an inch. So you can see that I've pressed it and I've actually trimmed off the pieces that are overhanging. So now I'm going to put the other green border on. And you can see there that we've got a piece overhanging because of what we've lost in all our seams. So I'm just going to give that a press and a trim. So you can see that's our completed block. So I've pressed it and trimmed it, and then you can see that it's the same colours as this one that we laid out, but in a different order. So you're going to get 3 blocks with the same colours, but your fabric's in a different order. So that's Battenberg, which brings me on to our next block. So this is block number 5. And earlier on I said that one of the other blocks was my favourite. But as I'm looking at this, I realise how much I love this block. So with this, you need a white or a contrasting 10-inch square as well as your layer cake. So you can see I've ended up with 2 blocks. Let's just move that out of the way. I've got a white centre with this lovely pretty fabric around the edge, and then I've got the lovely pretty fabric framed with the white. So 2 squares, 1 layer cake square, 1 white layer cake square will give you these 2 blocks. And I really like this, and I think it's really, really pretty. With this, pressing is important because we have got joining to do. So always press towards the patterned fabric. So how we make this, we need a white 10-inch square, and we need a coloured 10-inch square. So we've got lots of layer cake that come in whites, creams and plain colours, as well as all the other layer cakes that we sell. And with this one, it's 2½ inches again. So you take your ruler and you cut 2½ inches. Now with this one, you don't move it, you turn it, because we need to create that corner. So with some of the others, I cut 2½ inches off twice, but with this one, I'm not going to move it, I'm just going to go round. And this one, a rotating mat is a real must for it. Probably should have pressed that a little bit better, but anyway, I'll lay it flat with the ruler. And then what we do is we take the corners away. And we take the centre away. So that's our one block. And then to make the other block, we've got a centre. What have I done here? We've got a centre. And then we're going to have a white. So I'm going to put our corners on. There's our white piece to frame the side, our corners, our white piece and our corner. So it's the same block but the opposite way round, and I really love that one too. Which brings me on to the final block, which is really very clever. So I've got 4 10-inch squares here. I've put 2 together, right sides together, and I'm going to the machine and I'm going to sew down each of these sides, and then I'll come back to the middle and show you what we're going to do. So I've sewn 1/4 inch down each side, having sewn 2 together, right sides together, here and here. I'm going to put those on top of each other. And then I'm going to cut straight down the middle. So because this is a 10-inch square, I'm measuring 5 inches from the edge of the fabric, not from my sewn line. So 5 inches from the edge of the fabric. I'm going to cut through all 4. So we've now got our first piece, and I'm just going to finger press that backwards. I'm going to press that to the dark side. I'm going to finger press this one to the dark side. Normally you'd iron this. And then I'm going to put the 2 together. I'm going to turn them around. So I've got my seam now going horizontally. Let's just straighten them up. Actually, I will press them. It will make my life easier. So I'm going to make sure I'm butting my seams together because they're going the opposite way. Don't press that one very well. So I'm just going to pop a pin in the edge there. Put those 2 seams together. Pop a pin in there. So now I'm going back to the machine. So I've got my pieces joined right sides together. I'm going back to the machine. I'm going to sew down there. So I've sewn down both sides. So I had my seam horizontally, then I sewed down both sides. So then I'm going to cut this in half again. So at 5 inches, right the way through. And there you have the perfect 4 patch. So your colours are in different orders. And if we continued and did this one as well, we would have 4 patches. So that's a great way of using a layer cake square, and you've actually brought it down to a 5-inch square, and you could do a whole quilt like this. So I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial, and I've given you some ideas about what you can do using layer cake squares. As always, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the Sewing Studio.